Welcome to class 1 of Sunday, January 27th, 2019. Today we're going to talk about certain endgames because of what's happening in the Netherlands. You guys know what's happening there. The
Tata Steel chess tournament.
That's right. It's ending right now. Unless you're at home, then it ended a while ago. And then the last round's going on right now, and there's one game left between Sam Shanklin and Vladimir Kramnik. Otherwise, it was a draw fest. They offered a draw before you were born. Yeah. And there's still a game going on. It's amazing. Yeah. It's like Aerosmith, right? No? The group? The book? No? You've heard of both?
Probably.
Yeah, they're spelled differently. Yeah. Right? No? All right. Okay, so normally when I lecture about a topic, I either show a theoretical position or a practical position, which for the kids is confusing because you don't know what those words mean. Okay, so theoretical means it could happen. Practical means it did happen. For example, you see an airplane and you're like, does that airplane fly? It should fly. That's theoretical. Then when it actually is flying, that's practical. It is flying, right? Okay, so in chess, we make up positions, and we're like, what's happening? Then we figure out what happens. Then we analyze those, then we know endgames. Then we're like, yeah, I know that endgame, I studied that. Then you play in a tournament, and you actually get that position. That's practical, right? Then you're like, what did I learn? I forgot. Right. Okay, so we're gonna do both. I'm gonna show you a theoretical position, then I'm gonna show you when it happened, because a couple of those things happened this week, okay? And the grandmasters who are in charge of knowing that stuff, they didn't know that stuff. So results happened that shouldn't have happened. Even though they're grandmasters, the truth hurts. Okay, the first one is this one because I said so, right? This is something you all know, except for those of you who don't know it, which is like half of you, okay? Now, we have a name for this. It's called the wrong colored rook pawn. That's what we call it. Because the bishop is on a white square, or it's green, and then the square you promote on is a different color, right? When my pawn gets to the end, when my pawn gets to the end, it makes a queen, then you win. And if you want to make a queen and you want to win, you need, in this position, you need your bishop to be on that color. Then you win easy. You play bishop here, check, and then you promote your pawn. Easy. However, is the bishop on that color? No, now you don't win. Okay, this is a draw. If I turn on the engine, it says draw. If grandmasters play, they agree to a draw, because white can't win. Black has a very simple plan. King here, king here. That's it. And if you prevent black from making those moves, then it's stalemate. So for example, here, that's stalemate. Who wins when it's stalemate? Nobody wins, okay? So if you don't want to stalemate him and you go here, okay, now the king can move out, then the king moves back, then the king moves out, then the king moves back. And if you stop the king from moving out, then it's stalemate. Right? So this position is a draw, you can't win. Now you might say, well, that position is never going to happen, what do I care? What happens is when you have a losing position in an endgame because your opponent's winning, you try to get these kinds of positions which look losing, but they're actually draws. You try to do that. And the person who's winning, they try to avoid these positions because they want to win. Okay, and sometimes it happens where it's not clear if the black king can get here. So here's what's funny about this. I'll show a puzzle, I'm going to show one now, where the king isn't in the corner, it's sort of near the corner, but not in the corner. And then white's winning. And a friend of mine said, how can white win when this is the wrong pawn? And I said, do you think this is a win? What do you think? Yeah, because white makes a queen. Is this king going to stop that pawn? No. And he was like, well, of course that's a win. I said, that's a win for white. This is a draw. And somewhere in the middle, it's a win or a draw depending on whose turn it is. And so we have puzzles based on that. And actually, I had a game 2 years ago where I was losing, but I ended up getting this position and drawing. It was too complicated because we both had seconds left. Okay, let's get to the real stuff. Okay, this is a puzzle that was invented about 150 years ago, or I guess it was composed. Notice if the black king is here, that's what we were just talking about. The black king's in the corner. This pawn is promoting on a dark square. Is that bishop on a dark square? No. So if black gets his king here, it's a draw. If you have white, you have to stop the guy from doing that. If you have black, you have to run over there. Okay? So I'll show you the winning method, then I'll show you an actual game where this sort of came up, but the guy didn't win. I mean, the guy didn't draw. White plays bishop here, stopping this. Okay? Unless you're in a scholastic tournament, then who knows? Still go there. Okay. Now, if black plays the obvious move, what's the winning move for white? How do we stop the black king from getting into the corner?
H6.
Play H6. The black king has to move, but we can't move here. It's check. If you move away, then I make a queen. So I win. So if you play king F8, you lose. You should play king E7. That way you don't lose yet. You lose later. White wants to make a queen. What's the only good move for black that stops white from making a queen? There's only one move. It's pretty hard to find.
King F8. King F8.
If you play king F8, then you can't move. I'll move my king back because I'm silly, and now it's your move.
Oh.
And then you don't want to move, do you?
No.
No, because I'll queen my pawn. So what else can you do? That's why it was hard. King F8 doesn't work, but you want to move towards the pawn. What's the other way to do it?
King F6.
King F6. If you take the bishop, I think white's going to make a queen. By the way, when I'm watching kids play chess, some of them move in less than 1 second. They just don't even think about what's going on. Now, if you have black and you go here and the guy goes there, I think they're going to make a queen. So maybe you shouldn't do that, right? You should play king F6. Okay, now, black wants to play king G6 and take the pawn. Right? How do we stop king G6? There's got to be a way to do it.
Bishop F5.
Bishop F5. Now, if he takes the bishop, we make a queen. Hooray! If black doesn't want white to make a queen, black doesn't, what's the only move black can make to save the game right now? Doesn't save the game later, but right now it does. What's the only good move for black? Yeah?
King to F7.
King to F7. Okay, now black wants to play king here, and then he draws, as we discussed earlier. There's 3 ways to stop king G8. Bishop E6 stops it, but then king G6 is a draw. I take the pawn for nothing. H7 stops king G8, but then king here, and my king gets to the corner, and I draw. So what's the only way to stop king G8 that's not this and not this? There's one more move. How do I stop the king from coming in? It's a move you normally wouldn't make because it looks silly, but you gotta stop him from playing king G8.
Bishop H7.
Bishop H7. Now the black king cannot approach. All those squares are defended. However, if the king was on G5, then we could just take the pawn, right? So let's go to G5. What's the only move that stops king G5?
King F4.
King F4. Now it's an easy win. Black's king can't get over there. We stopped him. So now you just push the king away. And then we convert our pawn to a queen. That puzzle's really old. The reason it's a good puzzle is you have to make the only move to win in every position. Bishop E6 is the only move, and then after king E7, H6 is the only move. And then after king F6, Bishop F5 is the only move. Then after king F7, Bishop H7 is the only move. And then after king f6, king f4 is the only move. And now it's sort of easy. And what you were doing is you're stopping the black king from getting into the corner. And so you have to stop him. Then when you stop him, you win. It's sort of like the black king's over here doing nothing, and we promote our pawn to a queen. Now, that puzzle and similar positions, grandmasters know that. Now I want to show you something silly that I forgot to show you, because sometimes I'm silly. When I'm silly, I forget to be silly. Whoa, that was pretty silly. Okay, so so just to show you how drawn that is, when the king's in the corner, we're gonna give white 5 pawns. It's pandemonium, right? White has a bishop and 5 pawns, and black has nothing. And this is a draw. Can't win. Black plays king g8, king h8, king g8, king h8. Okay, so when the bishop is the wrong colored pawn for the side pawn, you don't win. Very strange. Okay, now a few days ago, this position happened. This exact position. So before, we were talking about theory. I made up a position and we analyzed it. All the grandmasters know those positions. This position's never been analyzed, but this game happened in a real game a week ago. Now, let's see, I'm gonna guess 2. Gotta guess something. How many people in this room have heard of the 13-year-old Indian grandmaster, Ramesh Babu Pragnanandha? I said 2 and it's only 1? I thought it would be you and one of the adults. Okay, he's 13 years old and he's a grandmaster. That's pretty good. Also, his names are longer than yours, okay? And his names are so long, normally in a tournament, they write PR. They don't write either one of his names. Yeah, or they write Pragnanandha R. They never write them both. Because I played him once and we shook hands and it started the timer. And then we were taking notation, right? And then I wrote his name down and my flag fell. Exactly. And she got it. The other ones are like, wow, tough name. Okay, so now he's a very famous person, so he needs to hire an agent and a lawyer, right? So who was the first person he hired? A PR guy. What? No, I made the joke already. And he got it and that was it. Yeah. Okay. Now, and like 3 guys at home got it and the other thousands didn't get it. Yeah, they're smart at home. Yeah. Okay, put down the sandwich. Whenever I say that, I get a thing like, I was eating a sandwich, then I put it down, he told me to. Okay, now in this position, you'll notice white's going this way because I said so, and therefore black's going the other way. You'll also notice this is a side pawn. Does that bishop control the promoting square?
No.
No. So if white's king gets to h1, it'll be a draw. Can white's king get to h1? No. Okay. However, white has an advantage that we didn't see in the previous puzzles. Okay? If this was a previous puzzle, black would win. However, white has 3 passed pawns. We didn't have that in the other puzzles. If those pawns weren't there, white could resign because white's king can't get into the corner. However, white's king can run over here, and if black's king runs over here, I'm gonna push all my pawns. So if your king goes over here to stop my pawns, then I can draw. Now, the problem that black had was, that white had, is white was too confident. White thought this was easy. He's like, this is an easy draw. I move my king over there, and then I push my pawns, and then I draw. And it turns out, it is a draw, but it's hard. But he thought it was easy, so he played fast. Don't play quickly, you'll make a mistake. Turns out, white can play king e3 or king e2 to try to get to this corner, but only one of them draws, the other one loses. And he played the wrong one, okay? And the reason the right move is correct is because you want to have as many options as possible. If you're running your king to the corner, you want to have a lot of places to go. Now, if you want to get to the corner, you have 3 ways to do it from the F file. here, here, and here. Those are all 2 squares away from that corner. You want your king to have the option to go to those 3 squares. Therefore, what should white play? If you want to go to all 3 of those squares.
E2.
E2. King E2 is a draw. He didn't play King E2, play King E3. And when you play King E3, you could not play King F1. I guarantee it. And black made the move that white didn't see. White thought this was an easy draw, and black played bishop G3. If it's black's turn to move, this wins. I queen. What's the only move where you don't queen? What can white do? How does white stop that pawn? This one's not hard. You all should be yelling it out.
F3.
King F3, yeah. Now if you play H2, I stop you. Draw. Now, what white would like to do is play King F1, because King F1 draws. But he can't play King F1 because he didn't play King E2. If he plays King F1 here, it's a draw. But he has to play King F3, and now bishop H4. And the white king can't get over there. If the pawns weren't here, then white could just give up here, because black's going to make a queen in 2 moves. Okay, white has to move his king to one of these squares, and then black makes a queen. However, white does have these 3 pawns, and from a previous ending, which you guys don't know, I know that the king can stop all 3 pawns from other endings that have nothing to do with this. So white pushed his pawns, I don't know how, but it doesn't matter. Okay, and eventually white can't push his pawns anymore. They all get stopped. There's more than one way to stop them, that's one way. Then when the pawns can't move anymore, this guy has to move. That guy can't move. That guy's perfect. If he moves, this pawn's gonna promote. So white gave up in this position. He's like, I give up. Okay, now, if white had played slower and thought about the situation, white would have played King E2. Now if bishop G3, King F1. You see how my king is getting to the corner? Yeah, if you stop me from getting to the corner, I'm gonna win this pawn unless your king helps. If your king helps, I'm gonna make a queen. So your king has to go over here to stop that, and then I win your pawn. So the computer says, King E2 draw, otherwise you lose, and white didn't think for 5 seconds. White thought it was an easy draw. He played King E3, and then he was like, oh, I can't go over there. Although he didn't say that, but he was thinking it, right? All right. So that actually happened like 5 days ago, and then the guy lost. Now, there's something called prejudice, which happens in the world, happens in chess too. And you're like, tall people do this, and short people do this. And it's not true, but you say it anyway. Old people do this, and young people do this. In chess, we have chess prejudices. And one of them is that young children play endgames really badly. That's a thing that people say. Okay, and the reason is, if you've seen thousands and thousands and thousands of endgames, you'll play pretty well. Well, if you're 8 years old, you probably haven't seen thousands of endgames. If you're my age, then you have. However, if you open a book and it says, play the Sicilian, and you read it, now you play the Sicilian pretty well. So young kids, generally, that are like really high rated, they play the opening really well, but their endgame play is not as good. That's a young kid, his endgame play wasn't as good, because he hasn't looked at thousands and thousands of endgames. He's a little kid. When he's in his 20s and 30s, he'll be like telling his opponent, yeah, when I was 13, this happened, and now I know everything. So you learn. Yeah. Okay, and his opponent was old, so he showed him. Okay, now, this is something that's very annoying when I see children do it, especially when they don't do it. And that's like half of you. Now, I've been to a lot of scholastic events, surprisingly more than you have, because I was a kid before you were born. Okay, even you two, okay? And in a scholastic tournament, I will often see this. Check, 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 and then both kids start laughing. Okay, or I'll see this. And once again, both kids start laughing. Probably you don't win doing that. Okay, when you win king and rook versus king, there's not a lot of checks. Now the standard way to win takes forever. Okay, and what that is you wait for black to oppose the kings, and then you check. So the right move is rook here. This is a pattern most of you know. You chase the king, but I'm going to show you some shortcuts. Then the king runs out of room. I can't go here anymore, right? So I go in front of your king, then you check, and then you do it again. Okay, Steely Dan style. Right? You go back and do it again, right? Okay, and then there's nowhere to go. And then when the kings are lined up, you check, and then you do it again. And then eventually, there's no more chessboard, the kings are lined up, and it's checkmate. And that's fine. Notice that took 20 moves because it says so. Okay, that's not a good way to do it, but it works. Okay, and that's better than a lot of kids who just check every move. Okay, now what kids don't understand, and a lot of adults, is that when there's no pawns on the board, and there's not pawns on the board, is there? Okay, then all of these are back rows. You can just turn your head. Okay, if you don't see it as a back row, turn your head and it's a back row. Okay, turn your head upside down and it's a back row. Okay, the chessboard is a square, so if the black king is anywhere there, that's a back row. So if we look at what we just did, let's look at it. The black king is on the back row now. Okay, it's on this back row. When your opponent's king is on the back row, you want to keep it there. So it never leaves the back row. How can you keep the black king on the back row? There's one way to do it.
Rook b5.
Rook b5. Now, if black could move infinitely and white didn't get to move, black could go to these three squares, that's it. There's nowhere else to go. It's trapped. So we just walk over and checkmate you. What's the problem? Okay, and then checkmate. Okay, and that took 10 moves as opposed to 20 moves. 10's less than 20. Okay. If you're a grandmaster and you play a lot of blitz chess, you have to know how to mate quickly with a rook or a queen so your flag doesn't fall. If you're playing like 1 minute chess or 3 minute chess or 5 minute chess, it can't take you 10 minutes to mate with a rook. You got to mate with a rook in 10 seconds. You got to know all kinds of tricks. Okay, and so if you check every move, that's not how you checkmate somebody. The way you checkmate somebody is make their king go to one of the back rows. And if the king is near the, now let me show you something I would do, just so you know what I would do. Okay, in this position, I already would go here. I would. And now, the black king has 6 squares for the rest of the game. If I didn't do that, and I played here, if I had the black pieces, would I go into the side of the board? I wouldn't, I would go here. And then we'd have to do it again. Okay, so if I'm black, I'm not going to the edge here because I'll get trapped. Okay, so basically if you want to win with the rook, you don't check very often, and you cut the king off where it can't go away from the side. You want to trap the king, not necessarily check it. Check it. Okay. Here's a good example. If I'm watching a tournament game and the people are beginners and it's a kids tournament, it's just check, 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 and nobody ever wins. If the players are pretty good, like 600 to 1200, then they'll play rook a7. And then they'll win in like 6 moves. King here, okay. And they'll mate the usual way. Okay, mate. If the players are really good, what's white play in this position? It's the really good move. It's the goodest. It's recommended by me. What's the best move for white? Ending the game the quickest. Now, the reason nobody's yelled the answer out yet is you don't think the way I do. The way to think about this isn't to think about what you want to do, it's to think about what black wants to do. I have a question. Does black want to go here now? No, that'd be the worst move. Black wants to go here. Okay, if you could make black go there, that would be good. How about let's make him go there by taking away the other squares?
Rook e4.
Where?
Rook e4.
Rook e4. I think the king has to go to where it doesn't want to go. And then checkmate. That was quick. Okay, so there's tricks like that where instead of chasing the opponent and then eventually he's trapped, just making him go where you want him to go by not chasing him, making him come back. That trick can happen in lots of positions. That's just one of them. Where you want your opponent to oppose kings. And I've been to a lot of scholastic tournaments and I see the following. King here, threatening mate, and then no, I don't want to get mated. Yeah, I want to mate you, no, I don't want to get mated. And then nobody ever wins because the way to win this ending isn't to oppose kings, it's to have the other guy oppose kings. So here we play rook f4, and black has to oppose kings. Mate. If you oppose kings, it's your opponent's turn, so they move away. That's silly, right? It's silly, but it happens a lot. Okay. Okay, and this is the end of a puzzle I show. This is the end of it. Now again, the usual way people win is this. This is the usual way. And then mate, and a lot of people won't even mate. They'll play here, and then they'll mate. Let's see who's good at counting. Who's good at counting? If you were white and you wanted to deliver checkmate, how many choices do you have? How many moves are checkmate?
2. 3.
You win the auction. You bid the highest.
6.
6? I guess she wins the auction. Okay, 3 is correct. Checkmate, checkmate, checkmate. Right? Okay. Now, instead of winning in 1,000 moves, we can win in 2 moves. I have a question for the audience. If you have white, hopefully you have white. Do you want black to go here, or do you want black to run away?
Go there.
So let's make him go there. How do you make the black king go there? In the corner.
Wait,
I'll wait.
alright.
Yeah?
I saw something there.
Yeah.
Queen g3.
Queen g3. I think he has to go there now, right? So instead of chasing the king, make the king move towards you. Now, surprisingly, you have 2 checkmates. The one you see and the one you don't see. That's the one you don't see. That's the one a grandmaster plays because it saves energy. It's 1 square instead of 3, right? Don't give me 1 square, you better make it 3. All right, the adults didn't get it. A couple of you at home got it. I listened to George Thorogood coming here. So, 1 check ain't good, you better make it 3. There you go. Yeah, you sort of got it, right? Yeah, there you go. Okay. Okay, so when you have a queen or a rook and you're trying to win, hopefully you have the queen or the rook, not just the king. Instead of chasing the king, make the king come towards you. Then you win right away. And if you're playing with a clock and you have very little time on your clock, it would be good to know how to mate quickly, as opposed to, I mated him in 20 moves, but my time ran out on move 10. And I'm like, you had mate in 2. And you're like, yeah, I didn't see any of that. So it's better to force the king, to you instead of you chasing the king. Okay, this is a funny puzzle, and so we can vote. Then we'll see who's the closest without going over. Also, you can go over. Right? Okay. Obviously, white's winning. Now, let's assume a computer's playing a computer, and it plays perfect every move, right? Every move is the right move. How many moves until it's checkmate? Let's guess. Somebody raise their hand and give a random number. Yeah? 10? What do you think?
1.
1? Mate in 1? That's quicker than the computer can do it. Yeah.
6.
6?
5.
5. You're right, so we'll just go with you. 5 is correct. Okay? It's mate in 5 moves, but if 2 kids are playing, or 2 novices or 2 beginners, it ain't gonna take 5 moves, it'll take a lot longer. That's because they don't play the right moves, they usually just check a lot. Now, unfortunately, 90% of chess teachers teach the absolute worst way to win this. Probably your teacher did, okay? And the reason is it's the easiest and it's the slowest, okay? The worst way to win this is the way all the teachers teach, which is to move the queen a knight's move away. Then it takes 1,000 moves to win, okay? I'll show you what a teacher would teach you, not me, but move the queen like it's checking like a knight, and you keep doing it forever. You see what I'm saying? Okay, and eventually, black's king gets trapped in the corner. Okay, when black's king gets to the corner, we don't stalemate him, then we don't win. Then we move our king up. Okay, and that took 5 moves, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that took 19 moves. Okay, and that way works, but it takes forever. Okay, now a quicker way is to stop the king from moving, and actually the correct first move is a knight's move away. You play in the middle. Who would have thought that playing in the middle was right? Black has 1 legal move. Now we don't want black to go back, so we move our king. Black has 1 legal move. Now we don't want black to go back there, so we go here. Did white check black a lot? Never. Now, if you go here, there's 2 checkmates. Checkmate and checkmate. That's 4 moves instead of 5. So black should play king here, and white plays king here. Black has 1 legal move. And now how many checkmates does white have? 3. That's right. We got queen here, and far away. Checkmate. Okay, and all of those are 5 moves. So it took 5 moves to win. And what a lot of people do, they think, I have to checkmate on the back row. That's the back row. That would take forever, right? Actually, there's 4 back rows, as we discussed, because there's no pawns on the board, and the king is really far from that one, so it's more likely to go to this one or this one. It's hard to go to this one because your king is there. So this one's the quickest. Yeah. It's only 5 moves. This is a mate in 5 problem, and none of the moves are check. If you go to a scholastic tournament, all the moves are check. By the way, if you check your opponent every move, you can't win. Impossible. Okay? Because you need your king to win. If your king stays on e1, you're not going to win. Checking the king isn't the goal of the game. Checkmating the king is. And checking is half of it. And the other half is having them have nowhere to go. So by stopping them from going anywhere, you're getting close to checkmate. Wait, I just did that. Okay. All right. So this is a position I learned about 30 years ago, and it just came up 2 days ago. When I say it just came up, it was similar to this, not exactly the same. Notice white's up a bishop. Isn't that good? Okay, but white can't win because black plays king b8, king a8 forever. Forever. And if you stop king b8, that's stalemate. So this is a draw. Can't win. Can't take the pawn, can't stalemate him, can't stop king b8 to a8. And I learned this a long, long time ago. Okay, and every grandmaster knows this position. All right. Then this happened 2 days ago. Unless you're at home, then it was 2 years ago. Okay, and then this is very similar, except black has a knight and white has doubled pawns. Okay, and in the game, after king d5, white played the move b6. The reason white played b6 is white has a problem moving here. White's bishop is trapping the knight, so we don't want to move the bishop. If we move the king, attacking the knight, he attacks our bishop. So white played the move b6. And now black has to move. Black doesn't want to move. Black moves the knight, he loses his knight. If black moves his king, then when I play king here, you can't play king here attacking my bishop because you moved your king already. So after b6, Black did something really, 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 really bad that I tell all my students never to do. What did he do that was bad that I would tell you never to do in any game? What should you never do in any game of chess?
Get checkmated.
Also, he didn't get checkmated though. He gave up. He said, I give up, you win.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and you shouldn't do that. Also, he shouldn't do that. You,
Now move to F6.
also good, right. Yeah, funnier than me. Now, turns out if this knight's off the board, okay, and Black's king is on A8, like we just looked at, that's a draw. And he knew that. But he was like, well, I can't get my king to A8. So he was like, here, 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 takes, here, bishop here, ha-ha. And you can't get your king to A8. So he's like, I resign, I lose. But it turns out, you don't need to get your king to A8. King on C8 is fine. This is also a draw, and the doubled pawns don't matter. So Black plays king D7, king C8, king D8, king C8 forever. If you don't let him do it, it's stalemate. This is a draw. I know this is a draw. I knew it 20 years ago. But he didn't know it. And you can play forever with white, but you can't win because Black just moves his king back and forth. You can't win. You don't need the king on. And when he gave up, his opponent said, are you resigning? And he says, yeah. He says, well, this is a draw. The guy who won, he knew it was a draw. But his opponent gave up, so he won. Truth hurts. Okay, so even though white's up a bishop and a pawn, can't win. Black just moves his king forever. Okay, and if you stop him from moving his king, then he could go in the corner again. And he knew this was a draw. Stalemate. Okay, so when he gave up, the game should have been a draw, but instead he gave up. He didn't know that this was a draw. Now he does. Okay, and he's our US champion. Okay. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy. Now, when things happen, I think about similar things. And I wonder what would happen if they happened. Do you see the difference between this position and the positions we were talking about? There's a difference. Anyone?
He's not in the corner.
What's that?
The king is not in the corner.
It's not?
Color of the bishop.
You mean it is? Yeah, the bishop. Before, the bishop was on a dark square. Now it's on a white square. So I was like, is this a win or a draw? Turns out it's a draw. Okay? And if I ever take the pawn and you take my bishop, I know that's a draw. And the way to win doesn't work. The way to win is you play bishop here, and if he doesn't take it, then you win. Now he has to take it, because there's no other move, and then you queen. However, you can always take that bishop. Yeah, and then it's a draw. Stalemate. Okay, so I was just wondering, is this a win or a draw? It turned out it's a draw. Then I wondered some more stuff, because in the actual game, let's go back to the actual game, there's double pawns. It's not just one pawn, it's two pawns, which doesn't matter in this game. However, when I cheated and I changed the bishop, see, the bishop was on a dark square, but I moved to a white square. Now, when this pawn was off the board, that was a draw. But now that there's double pawns, now it's a win. It's a win for two reasons. First reason is I can take it and win, because now I have two pawns. So now, instead of stalemating you, you see how king b6 is stalemate? What's the winning move?
B4.
B4, and now it's not stalemate, so I win. So I was like, oh, if the bishop was here instead of here, that would be a win. But with the bishop on the dark square, we can't take that pawn. Okay. Then I moved the pawn all the way up. I cheated again. I just imagined positions. Now, if we take the pawn, This is not a win, this is a draw. And now this is stalemate, and this is stalemate, and if I move the king away, this is a draw. Okay, so I was like, oh, bishop takes pawn doesn't win, that's a draw. But it is a win. I just don't play bishop takes pawn. I win a way that I already showed you, which didn't work, and now it works because I have double pawns. I move my king in. What? What's going on? All right, I move my king in. Okay, and now I play bishop c6. When I played bishop c6 before, you took it. Now if you take it, I think white wins there, yeah? Yeah. So you don't take it, you go here. And now I go here, or king c7. Now you have to take it. And then I win. And then mate. Okay. Checkmate. So I was doing all kinds of, if the bishop's on a white square, do I win? If the bishop's on a dark square, do I win? If I have double pawns, do I win? So now I know a lot of stuff by imagining positions, right? And I did better than the US champion because he gave up. When he gave up, it was a draw. Okay, very suspicious. Okay. But he thought, I'm down a piece, my knight's trapped, my opponent has 2 pawns, I resign. And his opponent's like, you resign, this is a draw. So then he's like, aw. Okay, now, I didn't know if I'd have extra time, but I do, so I can show you these 2 funny things. They're funny. Okay, and then you can decide what's better, a pawn or a bishop. Many years ago, and recently, I was giving chess lessons, and I would show this position. Looks good for white, doesn't it? Yeah. Problem is, everything is stalemate. So after, let's say, king c6, king c5, I mean, king f5. Okay. Every king move to go closer to black's king is stalemate. That's stalemate. Or if I go to f7, that's stalemate. Or if I go to f8, that's stalemate. Or if I go to h6, that's stalemate. And if I don't stalemate, black plays king h8, king g7 forever. Now, I was giving a lesson about 14 years ago, and my student was 2200 rated. Is that better than you? Yeah, that's better than any 2 of you. Anyway, and he'd never seen this position before. So he tried to win, and he's like, stalemate, stalemate, stalemate. He looked for about 3 minutes, and he looked at me and said, I guess it's a draw. Okay? And this is not a draw. Now, but he didn't know how to win, so he couldn't win. Now, if you're stalemating somebody and you can't win, but you don't want to stalemate them because you want to win, then you shouldn't stalemate them. The reason it's stalemate is because of this pawn. If that pawn wasn't there, it wouldn't be stalemate. Can you get rid of that pawn? Yeah, you go here, I got rid of it. That was easy. Okay. He didn't look at that move, so he couldn't win. If you don't promote the pawn, you can't win. He didn't want to promote the pawn because he gives a pawn away. So he was trying to win without doing that, but you can't. And now after takes, every move wins, king f6 and king h6. King f6 wins quicker, but... And then we looked at this position about 15 minutes ago. You guys remember this position?
Yeah.
And what was the correct move for white that mates the quickest?
King g3.
What's that?
Queen g3.
Queen g3. Yeah. So I had a student who's now rated 2500. He got better. Now he's my teacher. Okay, and I showed him this position, and I said, how many moves until mate? And he did it in his head, and he said 7. That's correct. Take 7. Yeah. Because this is move 6, and then that's move 7. See, it says move 7? So in this position, he knew you promoted and play king f6. Now, if you have very little time on your clock, it's important to play king f6. If you play king h6, you're also winning, but it takes like 15 moves because the king runs away. And now you got to win this. It's easier when the king is trapped on the side, right? Then you win real fast. Yeah. So everything wins, but winning quickly is important when there's very little time on your clock. If you don't promote your pawn, you don't win. Now, there's two endgames that have this same theme. And I'll show you one that I made up and one that actually happened. And then you guys can go take a nap. Okay. Not new board in database, new position in database. Terrible. Okay. Now, remember when there was a pawn on h7 and you promoted it and you won? Now we're going to change it to a bishop. Remember that was a pawn? Remember that? And then we pushed the pawn and we won? Can you do that now? Can you push the pawn here? No. Okay. So this is the same. Black plays king h8, king g7, king h8, king g7. And it's stalemate if you don't want to play king g7. And the way that white won when that bishop was a pawn was he promoted his pawn. What similar move can white make to give that away? How do we give our bishop away? Bishop g8. Unfortunately, that doesn't win. Because I take it, if there was no bishop there, I would play king g8. There is a bishop there, I'm still playing king g8. When you promote your pawn to a queen, when it was a pawn, I can't play king g8. But now I can. And that's a draw. And stalemate. So this position's actually a draw. You can't win. If it's a pawn on h7, then you can win. That proves that pawns are better than bishops? It does in this position. Only in this position. Okay, and last but not least, in 2000, I'm going to say 7, because I got to say something, right? I don't know what year it was, but I think it was 2007. I was watching a game in the U.S. Women's Championship, and they got this position. And the game ended in a draw after they both moved their king around like 30 times. They gave up. It's an okay draw. Now, if white tries to win the normal way, black plays g4. If you take it, what's that called?
6-1.
Close. Look again.
Stalemate.
Stalemate. It's a draw. Black can't move. If white doesn't stalemate black, then black wins. So black makes a queen. So that would be a draw because it's stalemate. And white didn't see another way to win. So white moved your king around forever and just gave up, couldn't win. Okay? And it turns out the winning idea is the same as the other position where you avoid stalemate. Remember when white had the two passed pawns and then gave one away? Then it wasn't stalemate, right? Well, if you're winning and you stalemate, you don't win. So you try not to stalemate. And unfortunately, white didn't see the winning idea because it looks crazy. After king here, what move can white make to avoid stalemate forever? You don't want to make it, but it's the right move. It's the move you don't want to make. You're like, I'm not doing that, that's terrible. But it avoids stalemate, so it wins. What's the last move you would make?
Pawn f4.
Close. Pawn f4 is reasonable, but it doesn't win.
F7.
f7. Yeah, that move wins. Yeah. You're stalemating with that pawn all the time. Now when they take it, you're not stalemating with it. So you win. Takes the pawn, king f5. And now black has to move, but black doesn't want to move. So let's go, I don't know, here. And then we just keep coming. And we take everything. So actually f7 wins pretty easily. And I have an engine. I could turn on the engine. Probably it'll announce mate. I'm guessing. Yeah, I can see that far ahead, right? I think so. Yeah. Announce mate. It's going to announce, yeah, there we go. It says mate in 24. It'll get lower probably. What move does it play? f7, right? And when it doesn't play f7, it plays f7 later. f7 is the winning idea, mate in 22. Okay. But white didn't think of f7 because that looks really stupid, giving your pawn away. Well, either you stalemate or you give your pawn away. Stalemate doesn't win, giving the pawn away does win. The reason white's winning is white has a great king, black's king isn't great. if white's king was here, then white's going to lose. But since white's king's on the 5th row and black's king is on the 2nd row, obviously if I put the white king here, white's never going to win. But now the white king is taking all of these pawns. This actually reminds me of the other position where white makes a queen and gives away his pawn. White's giving away his pawn on purpose to avoid stalemate, and then white has a winning position. If white doesn't give away the pawn, everything is stalemate. Sometimes you give away a pawn to avoid stalemate. Okay? And an extra bonus problem, I won't even help you. You're going to do it yourself. This is a checkmate problem. White's going up the board, so white's pretty close to promoting, and it's white's move. That's pretty close. Are you making a knight or a bishop? See, that was a good joke, right?
Okay.
So C8 is a move, but you didn't complete your move. C8 equals what?
Stalemate.
C8 equals stalemate? Okay, C8 equals queen, right. You play queen, as you pointed out, that's stalemate. So white doesn't win, because it's stalemate. Okay, you don't want a stalemate, but you still want to promote your pawn. Now there's two ways to win. One is to move your king, and then make a queen. So like king here, and then make a queen, and then you'll win, I hope. Okay. But there's a much, much, much quicker way to win. Much quicker. The quickest. It's actually checkmate in 2 moves. That's better than like 12 moves. Where's the checkmate in 2 moves? Anybody? Anyone? Bueller? Anyone at home?
Oh, promote it to a rook.
Promote it to a rook. In one of my classes, last week, they promoted it to a knight. Then you don't win. Yeah, a rook. That's not stalemate anymore. Because we can go here and then checkmate. Right? So when you have an endgame and you're trying to win because you have an extra pawn or your opponent has just a king, don't stalemate your opponent should actually be like the number one thing you're thinking. Because when you stalemate your opponent, you can't take that back. Game's over. Right? So whenever your opponent has just a king, you have to avoid stalemate. If all of your winning ideas end in stalemate, then do something else. Maybe even give it away. Then maybe you'll win because you won't stalemate. If you stalemate, you won't win. If you don't stalemate, you might win. Right? So that's better. So instead of just giving up, try to avoid stalemate. When you just have a king and you're like, I'm going to lose, well, if they stalemate you, you don't lose. So don't give up like Sam Shankland. Keep playing. Maybe they'll stalemate you. Maybe it's a draw, right? Just because you're down a piece doesn't mean you're losing. That could be they can't make a queen. In all the end games, they want to promote their pawn. If they can't, it's probably a draw. All right, next week there's no class because there's a 2-day tournament and the Super Bowl. Where's the Super Bowl? Is it next door?
Mercedes-Benz.
What?
Mercedes-Benz.
It's inside a car? Wow. Must be a small Super Bowl. Who's going to win the Super Bowl? I forgot.
Patriots. Rams.
What? Which team's more evil?
Rams.
Close.
Patriots. Patriots. Yeah.
There you go. He's like, Patriots win and they're more evil. Correct. Good answer. Yeah. What's funny was, before I lived in Atlanta, I lived in St. Louis. You know which football team was in St. Louis?
Rams.
The Rams. Then they left St. Louis, then I left St. Louis. See, here's the story of my life. I lived in Detroit, worst football team ever. Then I lived in St. Louis, worst football team ever. Then I lived in Atlanta and went to the Super Bowl. Then they broke my heart. But now they're the worst, now they're the average team ever, but yeah. All right, went from Super Bowl to average. It's like I'm in Detroit and St. Louis again. Then when the team leaves, where I was from, then they win the Super Bowl. Right? Yeah. All right. Class is
Over.
dismissed. Come on, man. Still going. That was a good answer, too. Class is still going.